So a lot of people on the channel know that I obviously love the Walton Files. It's by far my favourite series on YouTube, and I've made a load of videos covering the series, whether it be a timeline video or just the whole story of the entire series. However, I wanted to answer this one question that a lot of people might have about the Walton Files, regardless of whether you've watched it or have not watched it, and that is, what makes the Walton Files so scary and so effective enough to make it my favourite series on YouTube, when you have the likes of Mandela Catalog, Smile Tapes, so many other analog horror series on YouTube. What makes the Walton Files my favourite? And that's by far how the story and the overall scariness of the series is. So in today's video, I'm going to explain to you what makes it so scary. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. If you do enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So first of all, I just want to talk about the story. Simply the story of the Walton Files, it makes this so much more realistic than other analog horror videos out there on YouTube. Now you're probably thinking, Cal, how is a animatronic haunting realistic? And that is purely down to the storytelling and the scenes we see with the characters interacting with one another. The prime examples I can think of this are, Susan and Charles talking to each other in episode 4 of the Walton Files, when they're, just repairing the animatronics with the Cyberphone console.
How's Lily, by the way?
He's fine. Spending time with her mother for the weekend.
And also the prime example is between, Martin Walls himself with Jack and Felix. I feel like that, conversation with Ed and Molly having to be picked up at the dance and brought to the dance by Felix, with Jack talking to him, informing him what needs to be done, is a very realistic conversation that would happen between two friends. And I feel like that is a huge bonus when it comes to the series, and it just adds to the realism.
All through tonight. Oh, I don't know, Jack. Today's been it's about Ed and Molly. They have a school event tonight, a school party, and they have no one to pick them up. I need to stay at the workshop to finish the paperwork, and Rosie's taking Sophie to the dentist.
Like, the fact that adds a little bit more realism to the series makes it so much more effective, and it genuinely makes you feel like you're just watching a normal TV show. You'd see that in normal TV shows, whether in other analog horror series, we don't see many, conversations between characters. It's more or less just text, and I feel like with the Walton Files, having those conversations with the excellent voice acting, which I'll go on to later in the video, makes it 10 times better, and ultimately, makes us actually care for the characters when they actually become in danger by the animatronics. Another thing, which is probably the prime example of what makes the Walton Files so scary, is Martin Walls' art style. I feel like the art style of the Walton Files is super uncanny, especially with the 2D art style. I feel like the way the characters move, specifically with Bon and Sha and all the animatronics, it makes it really uncanny, because what you're seeing, whether in these clips right here with Bon specifically at the end of Bunny Farm going crazy, that scene is a really weird scene and very uncanny in my opinion, and it just makes it 10 times scarier. I feel like when it comes to the Walton Files, the whole movement aspect of it and what you're actually witnessing is a super canny sight, and it's definitely a unique sight as well, because with the 2D aspect of when you see the actual morphed faces, when you see the likes of Ashley's face, which is kind of like more drawn and very cartoony in my opinion, but it's still really gory. And then you fast forward to the likes of Charles's death, with how, vicious and vile and actually kind of realistic, photorealistic of what could happen to a human. When you put them side by side, it is really uncanny, and the art style is really cool, and it's unique. And I feel like how much gore Martin Walls can, show in his art style really does add to the scare factor, because what you're seeing is like something that you haven't actually seen before. There hasn't been a series before the Walton Files that displayed the FNAF storyline in a gory way. Like, obviously we knew the FNAF story was super gory, but we never got the display of that in the games. However, the Walton Files does deliver that aspect, and I feel like when you see the goriness of the series, it really does show how much of a disturbing story is actually being told. Now moving on, what makes the series 10 times more watchable, as I said earlier, is the voice acting. The voice acting alone in this series makes it actually entertaining. It feels like you're watching a series. It doesn't feel like you're watching an analog horror series on YouTube. Easily be a Netflix adaptation. I feel like when it comes to that, it's very well made in that sort of aspect with the voice acting. It genuinely feels like you're watching and listening to real conversations between two people or three people, whatever it might be. The voice acting is excellent. I mean, obviously I mentioned the whole Felix and Jack conversation. the fact that that is Martin Walls himself, you know, it's very realistic. But if we fast forward a little bit onwards in that video, when it comes to how this voice acting makes the series actually scary, it genuinely comes to the fact of when Jack is leaving the voicemails on Felix's phone after Ed and Molly pass away.
If anything happened, Felix, you must tell me. You haven't told me in 3 hours. I need to know what's going on. I'm trying to call you all night. What the hell is wrong with you? I've been trying to contact you all night. I've been calling everyone for you.
Because when you have the Martin Walls voice acting, which is super, super, super angry and realistic of how a father would react to where his kids go missing, knowing that the other person being missing as well could be responsible, with the added tension of the music and the creepy face in the corner, like, this scene is horrifying when you actually witness it for the first time. And adding on to the other factor is the music. Now obviously it's a very tiny aspect of what makes the scene scary, but when you see and hear this music, when you're seeing specifically Shah's death and you see the sort of morphed face while the music is amplifying up in your ears and you're kind of witnessing all this happening at the one time, then when you fast forward to Bunny Farm with the Daisy song, which is already a super creepy song, this song alone, honestly, it really scares the hell out of me personally. But when it comes to being shown in this scene in specifics, it's terrifying in my opinion, and I feel like the use of music in this series is top tier, and I feel like it really does amplify, you know, the scenes that we are witnessing. Like, for example, when you have Susan or Ashley's death, which are very, you know, they're super, super gory. But if you fast forward to Charles's death and Rosemary's death, you know, those musical elements of those scenes right there are pure factors of what makes this series so much scarier.
Am I still beautiful to you, Sophie?
I know you.
Like, the fact that, in conclusion, like, what makes the series of the Walton Files scary is the fact that it doesn't need the jump scares. There's like 1 or 2 jump scares in the series, and the fact that this can still be considered one of the scariest series out there without using jump scares to show how really well made this is as a horror series alone. The fact that it doesn't really use jump scares, considering obviously FNAF, which is obviously the inspiration for this series, uses and relies on jump scares to be scary, the fact that this series takes that sort of aspect of the animatronics, takes away the jump scares, but tells a really interesting and conclusive story, along with the mysterious side of the story, really does amplify the scariness of this. And for me, it does make it very more intentional, the fact that it's so scary. You know, the scenes that we witness, it's not like it's kind of chucked in there to say, oh, let's scare them for whatever reason. It's a scare and it's a reason behind the scare. It's not like we're just showing a pointless jump scare that you see in so many horror films nowadays. The scares that we are seeing, you know, it actually, you know, leads to a, you know, progressive in the story, and I feel like that's a huge factor of what drives this story forward. And for me, when it comes to the Walton Files, it really does show how effective it can be in the whole scariness aspect, and it really does terrify me, because I've had so many people who come in and said the Walton Files is their favorite series along with myself, and the fact that it can be so scary and just so effective that eventually it just becomes enjoyable to watch. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely grim and scary as hell, but when it comes to actual story and entertainment value, it doesn't diminish in any episode. I cannot think off the top of my head any episode that I've watched I'm kind of like, oh, I can skip this part, it's not that good. I have been hooked on this series ever since it's come out, and I've watched every second of every clip. There's not been an episode where I've gone, okay, I'm just going to skip this part and watch on to the next. There is, every single scene is very well made in my opinion, and it hooks the viewer, and that just amplifies that it can be a scary series but also a really entertaining one. And the fact that it can display an interesting storyline as well just amplifies the how good it can be. But like, genuinely, I cannot explain to you if you haven't seen the Walton Files. Like, go and watch it, trust me. If you like animatronic horror, if you like FNAF specifically, you'll really like the Walton Files. If you have already seen the Walton Files, you obviously know what I'm talking about. I want to hear from you guys in the comments who have seen the Walton Files. Files. I want to hear from you in the comments to let me know what made it so scary for you guys. Was there a specific scene for you that made this series so much, 10 times scarier? For me, it was obviously the Charles death. I find that scene absolutely horrifying. The missing alone. Absolutely terrified me. I think I had nightmares for a week just because of the face and the teeth. It's so uncanny. I hadn't seen anything like it before. So if there is a scene in the series that really got you, I want to hear about it in the comments. I want to see what scared you guys most in the Walton Files, because realistically, that's what's all about this video. I want to hear from you guys. I want to chat with you guys about how you think of the Walton Files, what you think about it. Is it scary to you? Is it not too scary for you? Did you actually enjoy it? If you have seen and you didn't enjoy it, I'd be really curious to see what you didn't like about the Walton Files. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and if this did display the Walton Files in a good way and we haven't seen it, and it's inspired you to go and watch the series, I really do appreciate that. And if you have enjoyed this little video, make sure to smash the like button down below. Make sure to subscribe. We're literally like 300 subs away from 2k, which is nuts, by the way, so thank you all so much for the support recently. I just want to thank every single last one of you who have also been so supportive of the podcast I've just released. So thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate every single last one of you who've taken the time out of the day to hear me talk about the Walton Files. Have an amazing day, and as always, stay safe and peace. First shot of this episode. Tammy picks this house.
Oh, what about that one?
Now, if you ask me, that is the, worst house you can pick. It has wallpaper on the outside.